Halfdan Egedius was only 17 years old in 1895 when he painted this powerful portrait of Mary Clarsen, a young peasant woman from Bo in the Telemark district in south-central Norway. Egedius was fascinated by the idea of a distinctive national character, prevalent at the time, and it was in rural Telemark that he found his expectations fulfilled. His subject is dressed in the colourful folk costume typical of that region. Her hair, pulled tightly back, is bound with ribbons in the customary manner, accentuating her commanding features. She is shown in three-quarter length, her hand resting proudly on her hip, a stance usually reserved for men of distinction, giving the impression of a strong will and a female self-awareness bordering on the aggressive. This impression is further emphasized by the broad, exceptionally free brushstrokes and the brazenly summary treatment of some parts of the painting. The clear blue eyes and the ruddy cheeks epitomize the young countrywoman, unspoiled by modern city life. The use of light articulates the woman's features and accentuates the folk costume's simple but expressive richness of color. Halfdan Egedius is the child prodigy of Norwegian art. He was born in 1877 and died in 1899, only 21 years old. His exceptional gift for drawing was discovered early on. Here he is at the age of 11 in front of his father's portrait. Despite his short career, his artistic expression shows a wide range, from gentle lyrical paintings of scenes from nature to a highly charged characterization of landscapes and people. Egedius was only 16 years old when he painted Saturday Night, a so-called mood painting of a Telemark landscape. Erotic undertones prevail in this painting, showing two young men in their Sunday best heading for a secret rendezvous on a summer night. The summer of 1894 was spent in Vaga, in the valley of Gudbrandsdalen, with some of his older fellow painters. Naturalism was then on the way out, making way for symbolism and synthetism, evident in these paintings by Thorvald Eriksson, a landscape and a double portrait painted that summer. The influence of Paul Gauguin and others had left its mark. Simplicity of form and color was the watchword of the day. The somewhat bewildered 16-year-old Egedius wrote home to his parents. Naturalism, symbolism, idealism, stylism, and synthetism. My head is spinning. This portrait of his friend, Thorleif Stadsklev, was painted in Telemark in 1895. It can be interpreted as an artist's portrait in the spirit of symbolism. Absorbed in thought, the artist seeks for values beyond those of the everyday world. The light from the outside falls through the window, and we are thus made aware of the reality of the physical world. But the artist's attention is nevertheless directed inwards. The figure's pose seems to have been influenced by Eilif Petersen's portrait of the author and journalist Arne Garborg, also absorbed in his own thoughts and dreams. Egedius was a brilliant black and white artist. Here we have several sketches for some of his best-known paintings from Telemark. The themes are music and dance. He had early on become fascinated by the magic power of the fiddler's music, by its ability to tear people from their prosaic, everyday existence and hurl them into an ecstatic state, oblivious of time and place. He saw the fiddler's music and folk dancing as genuine expressions of an inner mythical reality, perhaps a truer and more real one than that of the physical, sensory world. Thorleif Stadsklev and Mary Clarsen are the central figures in these pictures. Girls Dancing was also painted in 1895, during Egedius's most important summer sojourn in Telemark. All of our attention is concentrated on the two women whirling in a feverish dance in the middle of the room. Colors are sparse and dark, the shapes barely hinted at. It's the movement and the mood which Egedius wishes to portray, not specific details. We recognize Mary Clarsen's pronounced profile in the woman on the left. Egedius was fascinated by this proud peasant woman. He was probably also a little infatuated with her. The soft light of the summer night falls through the window into the dark interior, giving the onlookers an ethereal glow, absorbing them into the room and into the mood created by the impassioned urging of the fiddle. The painter's direct and dynamic presentation of Mari Clasen does not preclude the sense one has that there is something mythical and compelling about her. Egedius was fascinated by the ecstatic whirling of Mari because when she danced, she seemed to be in contact with supernatural forces. A dynamic interpretation of the fiddler is the subject of Egedius's most famous work, Fiddler and Dancer. Large portions of this painting have been merely roughed in, thereby creating a feeling of vibration. This is in contrast to the portrait of the artist, which was executed with great precision. Three dancing girls whirl in the background. Their billowing costumes stand out in the dark. His friend Stadsklev was the model for the fiddler, an impassioned but accurate portrait. The painting can therefore be seen as the spirited portrait of an artist and as an interpretation of man-inspired. Egedius, however, was also a sober observer, as seen in this sketch of Mari Clasen. It is the grandest of the many sketches of her from the hand of her young admirer. This drawing was intended as a book illustration. It was Christian Krog's portrait of Alexandra Tarlow which suggested to Egedius the pose for his painting of Mari Clasen. But how different they are. While the worldly Alexandra knowingly observes her beholders, Mari Clasen carries her natural dignity as a matter of course. No refined feminine gentility, but rather a powerful female sensuality. The portrait of Mari Clasen is unique in Norwegian art. No one had ever portrayed a young peasant woman with such respect for the model's individuality and the colourful tradition from which she came. The choice of subject matter, the use of colour, and the bold and unfettered style earned Egedius great admiration. Even as a 16-year-old, he was regarded as one of the finest painters of his time. In the autumn of 1898, he came down with a serious infection, and he died the following February after a painful illness. Fate would have it that Mari Clasen died only a few months later. But thanks to Egedius's magnificent portrait, they both live on.